The jungle moon of Virex 7 was a place no human was ever meant to walk alone. Thick blue mist clung to the ground like a living thing, and giant white trees loomed above, their twisted branches reaching into a blood-red sky. Everything about the place whispered danger. The crash had come without warning. One moment the scout ship Harrow's Blade was gliding through orbit. The next it was burning through the atmosphere, engines screaming, alarms blaring. Corporal Alia Vance had barely managed to survive the impact. When she crawled from the wreckage, bruised and bleeding, she found no movement, no voices, no signals, just silence, and the feeling of being watched. Hours passed. She tried to patch into the comms, but the systems were dead. One by one, she searched the crash site for the others. Private Sandin's body was found first, his chest ripped open like paper. Then she found Lieutenant Harkin's helmet, still attached to his severed head, blood soaking the moss. Something was hunting them, and it wasn't just any creature. It was fast, silent, intelligent. It waited until they were alone, separated, and then struck with terrifying precision. She caught glimpses of it, black metal plates over rippling flesh, long claws, eyes that glowed like hot coals in the mist. She remembered the briefing before the mission. One word: Drexel, a bioweapon used by the Ulari Dominion. Not just a killer. It was designed to wipe out colonies, to leave no trace of resistance. A predator with no fear, no rest, no mercy. Alia ran. She didn't scream or cry. She moved through the jungle in silence, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Every step was planned. She used what little gear she had, her pulse rifle with only a few shots, a half-dead flashlight, a combat knife, and a damaged motion scanner. But no matter how far she moved, she felt the Drexel behind her, always watching, always hunting. It made noises sometimes, terrible, mocking noises. It could mimic human voices. Once, Alia heard her dead captain's voice calling for help, echoing through the trees. She almost followed. Almost. But she remembered the Drexel's tactics from the files. It played with its prey. It learned. She hid beneath a fallen tree, wrapping herself in vines to mask her heat. She heard it pass by just meters away, breathing like a machine running low on fuel. Her heart pounded so loud she thought it might give her away. When it was gone, she whispered into her broken comm unit, knowing full well no one might be listening. "This is Corporal Vance," she said, voice shaking. "One human remains, but that's enough." Her hands gripped the pulse rifle tighter. She wasn't ready to die. Not yet. Maybe the others had panicked. Maybe they ran and got picked off, one by one. But Alia had something the Drexel didn't expect. She had strategy, training, and a fierce will to live. She wasn't going to go down screaming. She was going to make the monster bleed. She looked up at the alien sky, then into the mist where the Drexel waited, and her mind shifted. She was done running. She would make the hunter regret choosing her as prey. On this cursed moon, a new hunt was about to begin, and this time the human would strike back. Alia Vance moved carefully through the alien jungle, every step slow and silent. The air was thick, damp, and filled with strange sounds, clicking insects, distant screeches, and the rustling of something big that never showed itself fully. She was tired, bruised, and hungry, but her mind stayed sharp. The Drexel was hunting her, but she was starting to understand it. It didn't just kill. It studied. It waited. It enjoyed the chase. That gave her an opening. Alia began using her surroundings not just for hiding, but for fighting back. She found long thorns on the ground and stuck them into soft pits, covering them with leaves. She smashed explosive fruits and spread the liquid on logs, hoping to blind or slow the creature. There were vines that gave off a sharp burning smell when cut. She tied them into tripwires. She even caught one of the lizard-like creatures that spat acid and placed it in a trap, knowing the Drexel would find it. Her goal wasn't to kill it. She knew that was almost impossible. She just wanted it to feel pain, hurt it, make it angry, because angry enemies make mistakes, and Alia was counting on that. The jungle helped and hurt her. The mist was thick enough to hide her body heat. but it also muffled sounds, making it hard to know where the Drexel was. Sometimes she would stop and hold her breath, listening for the faint hum of its armor or the soft thump of its heavy steps. The worst moments were when she heard nothing. Those silences were deeper than death. Still, she moved with purpose, setting up traps, marking trees, and slowly leading the Drexel to a place she had picked out, a wide open clearing surrounded by dense trees and jagged rocks. It was there she had a plan. She spent hours preparing the area, rigging sharp sticks, laying out fuel from the ship's broken engine, and placing small charges from her survival kit in hidden spots. Then she left bait, a bloodied helmet, some shredded cloth from her uniform, and a trail of footprints leading to the center. She waited above the clearing, lying flat on a high tree branch, rifle ready. When the Drexel arrived, it didn't walk in blindly. It paused at the edge, scanning, sniffing the air. It was cautious now, more careful than before, but it still moved forward. Maybe it thought she was dying. Maybe it thought the traps were weak. It didn't matter. As soon as its foot stepped near a vine, the ground beneath it gave way and it dropped into a pit lined with spikes. It roared in fury, metal plates denting as it hit the sharp edges. Alia pressed the trigger, and a charge exploded to the side, lighting the fuel and sending fire across part of its body. The Drexel thrashed, claws tearing through dirt and roots trying to climb out. She fired her last pulse shots into its face, forcing it to cover its eyes. One shot hit a small crack in its helmet, and dark liquid sprayed out. It bled. Not much, but enough. Enough for her to know that it wasn't invincible. Alia's chest rose and fell with rapid breaths as she watched the Drexel drag itself from the pit, wounded, furious, but alive. Its gaze turned upward, locking on her. She met its eyes without flinching. "That's right," she whispered to herself. "You're not the only predator here." She knew this wasn't over. The real fight was just beginning. But for the first time she saw fear, not in herself, but in the beast. And that gave her hope. Alia knew the Drexel was hurt, but it wasn't defeated. The creature's heavy breathing echoed through the jungle as it vanished into the thick mist, dragging its wounded body away. Alia didn't give it time to recover. She moved quickly, knowing that the longer the Drexel had to heal, the harder it would be to stop it. But her own strength was fading fast. Her wounds burned, her muscles ached, and hunger gnawed at her insides. Still, she pushed on, determined to find shelter and better weapons from the crash site. As she crept back through the wreckage, she kept her eyes and ears open, every sense alert for danger. The jungle had become a maze of shadows, and the Drexel was a ghost in the mist, stalking her relentlessly. In the distance, she heard the low hum of approaching ships, Yulari reinforcements coming down to secure the area. Alia's heart raced. If they found her first, she'd be captured or worse. The Yulari didn't take prisoners. They used creatures like the Drexel to break human will, to wipe out resistance before it could start. She couldn't let that happen. Gathering her last strength, Alia climbed a rocky ridge overlooking the jungle clearing where the Drexel had fallen. From there, she could see the Yulari ships descending like dark shadows, their sleek black hulls cutting through the red sky. She fired off a flare, hoping to signal any friendly forces nearby, but there was no response. She was completely alone. Suddenly, the jungle exploded with movement. The Drexel burst from the undergrowth faster and more furious than before. It lunged at her, claws slashing through the air. Alia dodged, rolling behind a boulder and firing her rifle. The shots grazed its armored hide but didn't stop it. The creature snarled, its glowing eyes fixed on her like a hunter zeroing in on prey. Alia's mind raced. She couldn't fight it head-on, not with so little ammo and energy left. Instead, she used the terrain to her advantage. She led the Drexel through narrow gaps between trees, forcing it to slow down and exposing its injured side. Every time it charged, she jumped aside, firing a quick burst into the glowing cracks in its armor. Slowly, the creature weakened. Just when Alia thought she had the upper hand, a squad of Yulari soldiers appeared, dropping from the ships like vultures. They moved with deadly precision, their weapons aimed at Alia. But she wasn't about to surrender. With a fierce yell, she grabbed a fallen branch and charged at the nearest soldier, catching him off guard. The others opened fire, but Alia was quicker. She rolled through the blast, dodging lasers and returning with sharp, brutal strikes. The fight was chaotic, a blur of motion, sweat, and blood. In the middle of the chaos, the Drexel roared again, attacking both sides, driven mad by pain and rage. Alia saw her chance. With a cry, she sprinted toward the creature's exposed flank and drove her combat knife deep into a weak spot beneath the metal plates. The Drexel screamed, staggering back, its strength finally breaking. The Ulari soldiers retreated, shocked by the unexpected turn. Alia stood over the wounded beast, chest heaving, blood mixing with sweat. She looked up at the red sky, the Ulari ships now hovering above, unsure of what to do next. In that moment, she realized something. The Drexel wasn't just a monster. It was a weapon, a symbol of the Ulari's cruelty and power. By defeating it, she wasn't just fighting for her life. She was fighting for all humanity. The jungle fell silent again, but Alia knew this battle was far from over. She had struck a blow against the predator, but the war had only just begun. Her spirit burned brighter than ever. Alone, hunted and outnumbered, Alia Vance would not back down. Not now, not ever. Alia barely had time to catch her breath before the skies above Virex 7 darkened with the arrival of the Ulari fleet. Huge warships blocked out the crimson sky, their engines humming like distant thunder. She watched from the jungle's edge as dozens of sleek black vessels hovered, ready to pour soldiers and deadly machines onto the planet's surface. The enemy's intent was clear: to finish the hunt and wipe out every trace of human presence. But Alia was no longer just a survivor. She had become a fighter with a plan. She raced back to the wreck of the Harrow's blade, moving quickly but carefully, knowing that the Drexel's wounds made it dangerous but unpredictable. She scavenged what she could: explosives, energy cells, and a damaged plasma launcher. Her hands worked fast as she rigged traps and prepared an ambush. The jungle was her ally now, a place where the Ulari's machines would struggle, and where she could use every trick she knew. As the Ulari troops deployed, descending from drop pods like shadows, Alia slipped through the undergrowth, setting off traps one after another. Hidden pits lined with spikes, snare vines coated in paralytic toxins, and camouflaged mines turned the jungle into a deadly maze. Ulari soldiers fell one by one, caught in explosions or trapped in snares, their panicked cries swallowed by the thick mist. The air filled with the stench of burning fuel and the sharp crack of energy weapons. Despite being outnumbered, Alia's careful planning and knowledge of the terrain turned the tide. She struck from the shadows, using hit-and-run tactics to keep the enemy off balance. The Drexel, still wounded but driven by rage, emerged again, this time an uneasy ally. Alia realized that their common enemy forced them into a temporary truce. The beast's growls echoed beside her as they moved through the jungle, hunting the invaders together. The fighting grew fiercer, the jungle alive with gunfire and screams. Alia found herself face to face with the Ulari commander, a cold and ruthless alien who ordered the destruction of the human presence on Virex 7. Their clash was brutal and personal. The commander wielded advanced weaponry and moved with inhuman speed, but Alia's fierce spirit and cunning kept her alive. She dodged energy blasts and countered with quick, precise strikes. The battle took them through shattered trees and over smoking craters, each fighting for control of the jungle's heart. Finally, Alia managed to land a devastating blow. Her plasma launcher's last shot blasted the commander's armor, forcing him to retreat. His soldiers, seeing their leader fall, faltered and began to withdraw. With the enemy retreating, Alia and the Drexel stood alone once more, battered but unbroken. The jungle fell silent again, save for the distant roar of departing ships. Alia looked at the creature beside her, no longer just a ruthless predator, but a fierce survivor like herself. They shared a moment of understanding, two hunters who had fought impossible odds and refused to give up. Alia knew this was only the beginning. The Ulari would return, stronger and more determined. But she was ready. She had survived the impossible, faced the relentless, and fought back with every ounce of human will. On this wild and dangerous moon, a human and a monster had forged an unspoken bond. united by survival and the fight for freedom. Alya's journey was far from over, but her legend had already begun. The jungle was quiet, but Alya's mind raced faster than ever. The Ulari retreat was only a pause before the storm. She knew their ships would return, bringing even more forces and deadly weapons. The nights were cold and filled with distant echoes of war, but Alya used every moment to prepare. She scavenged the wreckage for parts to build better traps and weapons, repairing the plasma launcher and crafting makeshift bombs from fuel cells and metal shards. She was no longer just fighting to survive. She was fighting to take the fight to the enemy. The Drexel, still by her side, was recovering too. Its fierce eyes held a strange respect for Alya, and their bond grew stronger. Together they scouted the jungle, mapping the best places to hide, strike, and disappear. Alya's plan was risky: to lure the Ulari fleet into a trap where their numbers and technology wouldn't save them. Days later, the sky turned dark again as the Ulari fleet returned. This time they brought heavy war machines, walking tanks with energy cannons and swarms of flying drones designed to flush out every human hiding place. The battle that followed was unlike anything Alya had faced before. The jungle exploded, with fire and smoke as explosions tore through the trees and ground. The Drexel fought fiercely alongside her, its powerful limbs smashing tanks and tearing drones from the sky. Alya darted between the chaos, planting explosives and taking precise shots that crippled the enemy. The Ulari commanders underestimated the humans and the savage jungle. Every ambush she set off was a blow to their confidence, every trap a test of their pride. The battle stretched for hours, fierce and unforgiving. But the Ulari adapted quickly. They sent in reinforcements, elite soldiers with advanced armor and weapons that cut through traps like paper. Alya was wounded, a deep slash across her arm burning, but she refused to fall. She pushed herself beyond pain, knowing the fate of humanity rested on her shoulders. The Drexel, too, fought until its wounds reopened, growling with pain but refusing to retreat. They were a deadly team, human ingenuity and raw alien power, united by survival. In the thick of battle, Alya spotted the main warship, a massive vessel orbiting above, controlling the battlefield with powerful energy beams. Destroying. It would end the fight, but it was heavily guarded and protected by drone swarms. Alya knew what she had to do. With the Drexel's help, she fought through waves of enemies, dodging fire and shrapnel, until she reached a downed supply ship loaded with missiles. They rigged it as a makeshift rocket, aiming to launch it straight at the warship. The moment came. Alya's hands shook as she activated the ignition. The missile shot into the sky, cutting through the dark clouds, heading toward the enemy's heart. Explosions rocked the warship, and alarms blared as the ship shook violently. The Ulari fleet faltered, their coordinated attacks breaking apart in confusion. Alya and the Drexel used this chaos to push forward, driving the remaining soldiers back into the jungle. The battle was won, but at a great cost. The jungle was scarred, Alya's body battered, and the Drexel breathing heavy beside her. As silence returned, Alya looked up at the dark sky, knowing the Ulari would return someday. But she smiled through her pain. Humanity had fought back stronger and fiercer than anyone expected. Alone with a ruthless predator, she had done the impossible. The galaxy would soon learn that humans were not just survivors. They were warriors, unyielding and unstoppable. The jungle lay quiet under a heavy sky, scarred by battle yet alive with the soft rustle of leaves and distant animal calls. Alya, exhausted and wounded, stood among the shattered trees, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The silence was not peace. It was the calm after the storm, the brief pause before the next wave of war, but Alya's heart burned with a fierce hope. She had faced the ruthless Drexel and the overwhelming might of the Ulari, and survived. More than that, she had fought back, and won. The bond she had formed with the creature once her enemy was now unbreakable. Together they had become something neither side expected, allies born from necessity and respect. Alya knew this strange partnership was a symbol of something greater, human resilience, the power to adapt and survive even in the darkest moments. News of the battle rippled through the scattered human colonies. Stories of Alia's courage and the defeat of the Ulari invaders spread like wildfire, igniting a spark of hope in a galaxy shadowed by fear. Humans, long underestimated and dismissed by other alien races, were proving they were not just prey but hunters. Governments and commanders who had doubted humanity's strength began to reconsider, sending reinforcements and supplies to support the fight. Alia's actions had changed the tide, showing that even alone against a ruthless predator, a human could turn the tables with courage and cunning. Yet Alia remained humble, aware that the war was far from over. The Ulari were powerful and relentless, but so was humanity's will to survive. With the Drexel by her side, Alia took on a new mission: to protect Virex 7 and prepare for the battles ahead. They moved through the jungle, clearing traps, rescuing survivors, and salvaging what remained of the wreckage. Each day was a test of endurance and spirit. They trained others to fight, sharing the knowledge Alia had gained from facing the enemy firsthand. The Drexel, once a creature of terror, became a guardian of the jungle, a fierce protector who deterred enemies with its mere presence. The alliance between human and alien grew stronger, a symbol of unity across differences. Together they were a living warning to those who thought humanity could be crushed or tamed. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the horizon, Alia stood on a ridge overlooking the jungle and the distant stars beyond. She thought about the sacrifices made, the friends lost, and the battles still to come. But she also felt pride in what humanity had achieved, in the strength born from struggle, and in the unyielding spirit that refused to break. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers, but Alia knew that as long as humans held on to their courage and ingenuity, they could face anything. Alone with a ruthless predator, she had discovered the truth about humanity, that even in the darkest moments they could rise and astound the universe. Her story was just beginning, a legend whispered across stars and planets, reminding all that humans were warriors born of fire and determination. The fight for survival had turned into a fight for freedom, and Alia Vance stood ready to lead the charge. The jungle was no longer just a battleground. It was a symbol of defiance, a testament to the strength that comes from facing the impossible and refusing to give up. The galaxy would never forget the day a human stood alone with a ruthless predator and changed the course of history forever.